Hi, this is Maddie Anthus. I'm with the Center for Student Success, and this video is part of the Virtual Advisor Training Series. This video will cover policies and procedures. The dates on this slide are for fall 2020, but you should pay attention to the academic calendar to see what the dates are for each semester. The first thing to take note of is Add Drop Week. This is the first week of the semester in which students can add classes, drop classes, or change their schedule around without any penalties. Dropping a class is different than withdrawing, and I'll go into that in a minute. The next thing to look at is the change of major application window. There's a college-wide date by which change of major forms need to be submitted to records and registration so that students can get a new advisor and be placed into a new major before registration. For fall 2020, that date is October 2nd. However, different departments have different deadlines and different change of major processes, so make sure you understand your department's process. If a student wants to be in a different major, make sure you have them look up that department's process as well. The next dates to look at are the registration windows. Typically, these are the first weeks in November and April, which means advising happens the weeks right beforehand. There's also a date by which students have to submit an ungraded option form, and for fall 2020, that's October 27th. These are for free elective classes, and the instructor doesn't know when a student has chosen to take the class ungraded. They'll only find out if they look at their grades afterwards. Finally, there's course overload, which is when a student takes more than 4.5 units in a semester. Typically, that requires a 3.3 and sophomore standing, and students should talk to their assistant dean about the process for overloading. As I mentioned before, a dropped class and a withdrawal are different. A drop can take place within the first week of classes, while a student can withdraw through the 9th week of class. For fall 2020, the withdraw date is October 27th. If a student wants to withdraw, they go into pause and click drop, which I know is confusing because I just said drop and withdraw are different. Before a student withdraws, make sure you really talk to them about what that means. We want to make sure that they are utilizing all resources like tutoring center, office hours, and the Center for Student Success before they decide to withdraw. And also make sure they understand what it means to get a W on their record. A W doesn't factor into their GPA, but it does count as an attempt at the course. It also could alter the graduation timeline for the student, especially if it's a prerequisite for another requirement or a required major course because they're committing to retaking it. Students who want to take a class again do not need to get approval to take it a second time, but if they have a third attempt, even with a W, that requires department permission. That's one of those things to consider if a student wants to withdraw from a class. That W counts as an attempt if they're going to have to take it again. It's highly recommended for students to take the class again at TC&J. That's because the higher grade will replace the lower grade. So if they got an F for the class the first time and then a C for it the second time, the C will be taken and the F will be removed from the GPA. Courses taken elsewhere will not factor into their TC&J GPA. If a student wants to transfer a course in, have them go to njtransfer.org to see which of their community college classes transfer to TC&J. All other schools must be pre-approved by R&R, and there's a course authorization form that students can fill out to make sure that their course will count for credit at TC&J. Students can transfer up to 16 units from a community college or 20 units from a four-year school. A few details on probation. First year or new transfers, so students with 8 or fewer attempted units at TC&J with less than a 1.7 cumulative GPA go on probation, or students with more than 8 attempted units with less than a 2.0. If a student is on probation, they are restricted to 3 units. The best thing for them to do would be to retake a failed or low grade course. As I said, the higher grade will take the place of their low grade, and that would boost their GPA. Students are permitted to petition their chairperson to take additional credits. If a student is on probation for 2 consecutive semesters or 3 total semesters, that will result in an academic dismissal. Students who are dismissed from the college do have the ability to appeal that dismissal. Intervention is for entering undergrad, so first year or transfer students with 8 units or fewer, if they have a GPA between 1.75 and 2.0. Here's a handy chart for TCNJ's retention standards. It's from advisingresources.tcnj.edu. If you want to take a look at this, you can feel free to pause it, but it's basically just what I just said on the previous screen. Around the middle of the semester, you'll get a notification from Records and Registration to fill out midterm progress reports. Professors assign reports of satisfactory, caution, or unsatisfactory. This gives students a snapshot of their current standing and allows them to know how they're doing. If a student gets a caution or unsatisfactory, an email is sent to the student and advisors are copied on it. If faculty need some guidance on what a satisfactory, caution, and unsatisfactory mean, they can consult the mid-semester evaluation policy. I'm going to scroll down so you can see how the policy defines each of these. As you can see, a satisfactory, or green, indicates that the student's academic performance in the course is currently adequate to earn a passing A-level or B-level grade. Caution, or yellow, indicates that the student's academic performance in the course is only minimally adequate to earn a passing C-level grade, and that worsening performance may result in a failing grade. Unsatisfactory, or red, indicates that the student's academic performance in the course is currently inadequate and likely to earn a D-level or failing grade. There's more information throughout the policy as well. If you'd like to see the policy in full, make sure you go to policies.tcnj.edu. As an advisor, if you receive one of the notifications that your advisee has a caution or unsatisfactory, you should reach out to them to see what's going on. That outreach could really help spark a conversation that helps them to turn around their semester. They might really be struggling and need to be connected to some resources, and you could be the person that gets them where they need to go. Finally, there are some online resources you can use if you have questions about any of these policies. The Records and Registration website has forms and policies that really lay it out clearly. There's also a link to that advising resources page that I mentioned earlier. The TCNJ policy manual has an A to Z search, so if you enter something like ungraded option in the policy manual, you can click on that policy and read all about it. As I mentioned before, the academic calendar has important dates, and then the CSS website and our advisors at CSS are happy to talk to you about any of these policies. If you have any questions, my email is on the screen, or I'd be happy to chat with you in a one-on-one advising discussion. If you'd like to book an appointment with me, my URL is at the bottom.